Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we have got a full album review for you. So it's been a while. I kind of just had this put to the wayside. Been a bit busy with the last week or so, and I finally got around to putting this album on last night, and I was up until about nearly 4 a.m. Working on this. So, without further ado, today we will be looking at Ov Sulfer and their album, The Burden of Faith. So, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the band, Ov Sulfer is a blackened deathcore band, as is kind of what's popular in 2023. A lot of deathcore bands seem to have these blackened symphonic influences throughout their stuff lately. And they come from Las Vegas, Nevada in the USA. According to the research I did, they were founded in early 2021 by former Suffocate frontman Ricky Hoover, who most people will probably know that name from somewhere or something. It seems like he's been around in bands for a while, and he's been, friends with some big names and stuff like this. The first single of the band also dropped around 2021 as well, apparently. And the full lineup consisted of, let me get this correct here, Ricky on Hoover, Ricky Hoover on vocals, two guitarists, which were Corey Walker and Chase Wilson, and Taylor and Parker Adist, I don't know how you say their last name, on electric bass and drums respectively. So they have all the ranges covered. So in June of the same year, 2021, their second single dropped called Oblivion, which featured Tim Lambesis, and obviously most people will know him of As I Lay Dying and a few other side bands and controversies and things of that nature and such. Later of the same year as well, they also dropped an EP around August with 6 songs on it. Then in May of 2022, the band joined the record label Century Media from Germany, which leads us to January 2023, where the band announced that their debut album, The Burden of Faith, would be ours to enjoy and indulge in. Now, online it said March 24th, 2023, but when I was listening to this on my Amazon Music on my Xbox, it said that it was released on April the 1st, 2023. So I'm not really sure what the disparity is and which is the correct date, so I have put both of them down. But yeah, so that's the band's rather short history and discography. Now, without holding anything on, let's take a look at track number 1, which is Stained in Rot, and is a runtime of 4 minutes and 14 seconds. Oh, and before I forget, the full album, if you want to listen to it from start to finish, is about 44 minutes, but if you're going to do something like this, 4 hours. Yeah, so track 1. We have a slight build that leads into the intro-ish part, which sees great drum work, and Ricky's powerful vocals really take command early on. And this carries on into verse 1, and looking at the lyrics, I have noticed that whoever wrote this, because I don't, that was one thing I couldn't find, I don't know who's in charge of writing. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Ricky. But whoever it is, they use some fucking big words, like unscrupulous or exoteric, and things like pietism, which 2 of these words I did need to actually look up because I had no idea what exhortate or exorticate, that's how you pronounce it, fuck me sideways, meant, apparently that means to strip something. Who would know? And apparently pietism is some sort of religious thing. I couldn't really find the full spiel in layman's terms because I was not prepared to read an entire religion's background late at night. Fuck that shit. But throughout this, Ricky moves effortlessly between vocal ranges, adding extra grime where needed, or even stripping back to do some cleans before the chorus. Speaking of which, the cleans are also layered over the growls in the chorus part to add this extra layer of oomph and depth to it, which I think is definitely a good touch because some people obviously don't like clean singing in their deathcore or any metal, in fact, you know. So I think to have it tastefully used, just to like break things up before a chorus or added in to help elevate the chorus at parts, is a smart way to get around that. Obviously, I'm one of these people, I don't give a shit if you have clean vocals in, you know. When Whitechapel started adding them in, I was all for it because fucking Phil Bozeman has a lovely singing voice, you know. And who would know it, but Ricky Hoover also has a really nice singing voice. I think if you're good at that and you have the technique to do both of these things, you're one talented motherfucker. And you should be able to show that off in your work. It shouldn't matter if fucking Bill doesn't like it on, you know, some Facebook group, but hey, you know, that's the problem nowadays. Like, people don't like the clean stuff, they just want heavy all the time. But I think it was done tastefully and used well throughout this entire album, but we'll get onto that at a later point. And before we end with track 1, we drop down into a brutal breakdown right before the end, just to solidify this as a great opening track to an album. Really is a well done one. Right, so that takes us on to track 2, which is Befouler, featuring the one and only Alex Terrible. Now, as some of you know, the very first ever review I did on this channel was actually Slaughter to Prevail, and their album Costalom. That was my catalyst for starting this shit. So always love to see Alex doing stuff, features. Hopefully we should have, rumour is there should be some new Slaughter to Prevail out soon in 2023. But yeah, so this is about 3 minutes and 43 seconds, and it's the first of a couple different features on this album. And we start with a quick, I'm pretty sure it was a violin section, I think, before diving into verse 1, which the tail end of hate behind praise, the voice that lifts you up, hungers for eternal damnation. And then this flows effortlessly into the pre-chorus chorus transition, which is fantastic. And this is, they long to see you fail, they crave your undoing, those eyes set upon ruin, with each step pulling ground from under your feet. And then obviously, like I said, this goes into a clean chorus of sifting through, lost in a sea of contempt, I find myself surrounded by this false front, oppuginers inept. And it flows really well. Like, obviously I can't do it justice, but Ricky manages to just glide through that bit, and it's just, ugh. And again, even with words like oppuginers, which again I did need to Google, and I believe, if I remember correctly, this was last night that I looked this up. I think it said apugeners is kind of like a fancy word for challengers or something like that. Yeah, so like I said, I did need to Google that, and throwing it to Alex at the end of this track with a solid, heavy, down-tempo, brutal outro was a very good choice. Great way to showcase what Alex is good at. Like I said, everyone knows that he's just got this fucking dirty vocal, so I may as well use it. Moving on to track number 3, we have Unraveling, featuring the one and only Taylor Barber of Left to Suffer slash Project Vengeance slash fucking Phone Booth, I think is the name of his solo project where he does like clean singing. And this runs for just shy of 4 minutes 50 seconds. I think it's like 4 minutes 46, 47, something like that. And this is one of the songs on the album that I was actually very excited to hear. And we start with an atmospheric choir-ish build up before the swelling build to a chant of die 4 times, you know, before verse 1, which was rather quick, very quick paced, comes into play, and before you know it, it's just like it's a very fast moving track. So like I said, I was trying to say, before you know it, verse 1 is already into like the next part of the song and all of that lot. The bridge was fucking brutal, and the guitars on the outro were super fucking clean. Unfortunately, unlike with the Alex Terrible part, it didn't actually tell me which sections had Taylor Barber in it on what I was looking at. I don't think I couldn't really see what he did, but there was sections where I thought I heard him, but the audio on my TV kind of made it hard to discern, whereas if I had my earphones in, I probably would have been able to hear it a little bit better, but who knows. So moving on from that one, I know that was a bit of a short track roundup. We've got track number 4, which is Death of Circumstance, which is 4 minutes 33. So track 3 flows straight into this, and it is fire from the word go. And again, limited use of Ricky's smooth cleans are used here for great emphasis or breaks in the song that will move the song along nicely and just aids the transition sections. And there's also really cool sections like narcissistic prophet, hell-bent on torturous obedience, the flesh burnt from their bones as they cried out in agony, and which shows his range and vocal skill so well, because he kind of like switches between what sounds like different techniques and styles through this. And I really enjoyed the chorus of this song as well, which was, all those that witnessed the suffering, horrid torture spawned from jealousy, a plague of those with God in their eyes. Just very solid structure, very good flow to this song. It's clear whoever crafted this track and some of the other tracks before it really do know what they're doing when it comes to like how to build a song and keep the listener engaged. And that is one thing I really do think these guys of Sulfer have nailed down. Each song has a very solid, you know, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, breakdown or outro format. Sort of like your regular old pop song, but obviously with a lot more aggression and talent behind it, I would say. So moving on from that, we move on to track number 5. So this song, I had a gut feeling what it was about when I was listening to the song, and I did Google what the story was behind it. And yeah, I was pretty spot on. So apparently Ricky lost his nephew to cancer, and that's what this is about. So yeah, it's a very emotionally heavy track and quite a chilling listen at parts once you know the backstory, and you've seen what he's had to say about it, because fucking dude apparently was genuinely crying in the studio tracking this song. And I believe I did read somewhere that that's in the music video, because they wanted to showcase the emotional toll it took on him. So as someone that's witnessed family members going through cancer treatment, yeah, it's a heavy one. But with that being said, I tip my fucking cap to Ricky Hoover. Like, stuff like this needs to be put out there. So yeah, I'm just gonna have a sip of drink before we move on. So this is one of the longer tracks on the album, I believe, of 5 minutes and 24 seconds, and it starts with this. I wrote down before I realised what it was about, eerie cleans of the line, "What kind of God would test a child?" The first verse has a lot of disbelief, and you can feel the turmoil and the almost anger in it, to like, and I think like certain lines do show this, and in one part, yes, Ricky does even say, you know, like, disbelief and stuff. So there's this particular bit that I kind of made me start thinking I knew what this track was going to be themed around. I've begged and pleaded above and below to take the place of those in tribulation. This feeling has birthed my disbelief. There's nothing to provide any comfort. And yeah. The chorus, I think of, I've searched this life for answers. I've waited for a miracle. I've prayed and prayed constantly. Fallen to my knees, begging for divine intervention, but nothing responds to me. Adds a whole nother layer to this track. You know, you can really, really feel Ricky's feelings as well in this. As you can probably see, it's kind of hard for me to get out what I'm trying to say now, so I'm gonna finish off this little bit here where it ends with now I believe this was pronounced Devest Mandicium, which I believe to be Latin for God is a lie, and I know I fucking butchered the Latin pronunciation. As much as I like translating things into Latin and using them in my own lyrics and people doing that stuff in their music, I am shit at pronouncing words. So yeah, forgive me for that. Like I said, very heavy track in both aspects of heavy emotionally and heavy in musicality. Once again, I tip my cap to Ricky. Very good piece of work, sir. Appreciate it. You know, takes a lot of guts to put stuff like that out there. Moving on, we have track number 6, which is A Path to Salvation. and this is only 1 minute and 13. It's a much shorter track. It is, I believe, the shortest track of the album. Mainly it's a musical showcase to me, but it does have a few bits of vocals, and it's just the same 2 lines repeated 3 times. Not too much to dig out here, not too much to look at. It's kind of almost like after the heavy song, emotionally heavy song, we have a bit of a break, a palate cleanser, a chance to catch our breath, and then we move on to track number 7, which is Apostate, or Apostate, sorry, there is no R. And this is 4 minutes and 40 seconds. We get an instrumental build for the first 27-ish seconds, and it's a blistering one with lines like disavow, divorce yourself from pestilence. I also liked the closing lines of devour, sanctity, power of the apostate. I am the apostate. I didn't have too much to say on this song. It's kind of one of those ones where, pardon me, trying to just move my t-shirt around, it's getting stuck. It's very humid here this morning. Yeah, it's one of those ones where it kind of is over by the time you've listened to it. It's like, obviously not short in runtime, but it's one of those ones that just moves by very fast and keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's just boom. By the time it's done, and you're like, shit, that song's over already? Like, fuck. So moving on, we are on the home stretch now to the final 3 songs. We have track number 8, which is Wide Open, featuring Howard Jones of Light the Torch and X Kill Switch Engage. And this song is 5 minutes and 7 seconds. Again, one of the longer runtimes on this album. Ricky and Howard's vocals work so well together. Ricky's powerful gutturals paired with Howard's powerful clean singing for the choruses is great. Lines like, I want to bring forth the dark, I want to be engulfed in flame, tear down the church and forever renounce his name, are great parts. And towards the end, there's just this one line where it just goes, fuck the salvation, let us be damned. Very solid track. If you're a fan of, like I said, Howard, you're gonna enjoy this, I would think, because like he literally does every chorus and like pre-chorus, and there are some parts where his cleans and Ricky Hoover's vocals overlap, and it's a solid pairing. I will admit, I was very skeptical. I wasn't sure how this would work on this album, because obviously Howard has a very distinctive vocal style. He has a very powerful range. Obviously, what with like some of his stuff, you would know, like obviously he has these more higher registering notes. But yeah, I think the decision to just have him doing the chorus and like let Ricky do the verses and just kind of flow between them was a good idea. I don't really think there was a better way you could have done the layout of this track. It was a very well thought out way of doing it. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was a lot better than I was preemptively expecting. So this moves us on to track number 9, which is the Inglorious Archetype, and this is about 3 minutes 46, I think. And again, this is another one with blistering pacing, with it really does have a short chorus that bleeds into verses effortlessly, makes this track feel even shorter than it actually is. The guitar work on this track in the album is superb towards the latter end, and they close it out nicely with some very interesting guitar work, and they kind of just let the guitarists go off on this one. not a lot more to say about that one. And that kind of brings us to the final track, track number 10, which is the title track, The Burden of Faith, which is the longest track on the album, clocking in at 6 minutes and 50 seconds. And this features Kyle Medina of Body Snatcher, another fantastic fucking band, and Lindsay Schoolcraft, who I believe is ex Cradle of Filth. So, as I say, this is the final, longest track on the album here, and we have nearly a 1 minute intro before Lindsay's vocals come in. She does like the intro / chorus, and it's already a much better usage than one of the other songs I've looked at with her in it as a feature, where they kind of just use her for spoken word parts, and the song was a bit of a clusterfuck. Her vocals actually add an extra layer to this, and the first verse as well is super solid. The post-chorus is stellar, and then the switch up from the chorus into cleans in a male register as well caught me severely off guard. I did not expect them to do that at all, because they'd already had Lindsay do the chorus and the pre-chorus and stuff like this for I think maybe one or two, and then boom, we had a male voice doing it, and I was like, shit, okay. And then they layer the male and female vocals of Lindsay over each other for extra emphasis, which adds just another layer of very well done creativity into this album and the artwork of everything as a whole. Again, the guitar work has some orgasmic sections, and the drums are kicking ass too in this track. The post-chorus into the outro was fire. And I've actually written down the outro here because fuck me sideways, it was brutal. Cut the throats of the false prophets, place their heads on pikes, spill their entrails for their gods to see, relics, a page of the past, ritualistic sacrifice in the name of a false god, make known the hoax, rip out the spore, make known the hoax, rip out the spore. Yeah, it was a good one. And now I'm not sure who did that outro verse, but it was brutal, it was visceral, it was a very good way to end the song and album. Like I said, it was a damn good track that used both of its features very wisely, very well thought out. Yeah, it it was a doozy. So, my final thoughts. This album was a fucking stellar album. From great guitar work and drum work to well used and well integrated features placed strategically throughout the album, to songs with heavy topics, both emotionally being earthen to heavy in the case of blistering pace and brutality in other songs. It's a debut album for the ages to me, and this is definitely going to top clock in at a 10 out of 10. It's at the top of the list. Very great work from Ricky Hoover and the rest of the lads. Very stellar work from the features. Like I said, whoever put this album together did it so well, because you have like two big names at the top of the album. You have Howard near the like middle to late portion, and then you round it off with again two decent features. Like I said, I knew what to expect from Kyle Medina because Body Snatcher fucking slaps, but I wasn't sure on Lindsay Schoolcraft's feature. I wasn't 100% sold on her being on the song, and then I heard it and I was like, no, actually shit, yeah, this works. And I feel like if you took that out and just had male singing, it probably wouldn't have been as neat of a package. But that's just me. Obviously, some people out there won't like the use of clean singing. Some people out there might not like the lyrical nature of this. Some people out there might not like the features and how they're used. at the end of the day, it's obviously all down to perspective and opinion and what people like. And for me, like I said, this is a 10 out of 10. This is a top tier album. I'm interested to see how the fuck they top this, because Jesus Christ, they've not left themselves any room to breathe. And with that being said, obviously I've got to give you my top 4 tracks to the album. Coming in at number 1, we have Unraveling featuring Taylor Barber. Number 2, we have Earthen, just because of how the song is and what it highlights and the emotion behind it. It can't be left off of a top songs off list. It is definitely a good one. Yeah. The third one for me, I would say Befouler featuring Alex Terrible. It's just another one that epitomizes a great use of a feature, as well as just great song work and in general. And Ricky's vocals are so good on this one as well. And for me, my final track that I would highlight off of this album would be I Apostate. It's not the strongest song on the album, but it is one that I thoroughly enjoyed. The musicality of it, the layout, the brutal natures, the sounds, everything just made it top 4 worthy. So yeah, with that being said, I will be loving you and leaving you and seeing you on the next video, which is going to be a short discussion piece on if concept albums are good or bad. So we will be looking at that in the next video. I know this has been a long one, so thank you if you have made it this far into the video. Without further ado, the only thing left to say is stay safe out there, my friends. Goodbye.